West Shore's high school principal, Richard Pimentel, slips on a cowboy hat before stepping outside.
So is your grade a little higher now? All right, way to go, kid.
It's as much fashion as a nod to the region's harsh desert sun.
We are about 30 miles from anywhere.
The school sits halfway up the Salton Sea's western shore.
Oh my gosh. You guys are seriously beautiful without being all made up, but like, look at those.
Pimentel offers a fun but firm hand for his 450 students.
They're my kids. You have to take responsibility and ownership of that. These folks have entrusted me with the welfare of their kids. It's a big deal.
But Pimentel can't protect his students from the desert dust.
Anytime there's any kind of wind, you see the dust clouds, and you can actually kind of see them from the outside. From as I'm driving in some days, you kind of see the cloud hover.
The dust in those clouds contributes to the Imperial Valley's highest in the state asthma rates, and most people who live here expect things to get worse. That's because the Salton Sea is shrinking, exposing thousands of acres of possibly toxic lake bed to the region's powerful winds. This, for example, looks like sand. But when you look at it close, what you see is that it's barnacles. But that's not what they're worried about. What they're worried about is this, the fine dust that comes from this playa exposed by the receding sea. With about 1.5 million residents in the air basin, there's concern this could become a public health disaster.
Without any intervention, it is exactly that.
Bruce Wilcox is the Assistant Secretary for California's Natural Resources Agency in charge of Salton Sea policy. He's helping guide the state's recently approved restoration blueprint.
You look over my shoulder, you can see a lot of exposed playa that probably we should have been working on this since 2004 or 2005, and we haven't been.
California actually agreed to start working on the Salton Sea restoration back in 2003 when a massive water management deal for Colorado River water was reached. But nothing happened until late last year when the state finally agreed to spend $80 million now and another $300 million over the next decade. Wilcox says the final bill will likely top $1 billion.
We need a long-term, long-range funding source for this project. It isn't going to be something that's $5 million here and $5 million there.
But he says it's a start, and that happened largely because the Imperial Irrigation District threatened to sue.
Hi.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Water manager Tina Shields says IID also suggested a lack of action could interrupt a water transfer deal with San Diego.
It's a challenge when you're this far into things to turn water on and off, and there's lots of reasons not to do it. But if we've got kids getting sick, that's just not tolerable for our community, and it's an unacceptable level of risk that we would take in order to continue those transfers.
Sonny Bono Salton Sea National Wildlife Refuge sits just east of the southern end of the sea.
Yeah, this is about a 5-acre pond, and lined with cattails on the side. That gives you a good indication it's a freshwater pond and in good shape.
Chris Schoeneman works for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. He's working to build a similar project on a 500-acre site near here. A berm would hold shallow water from agricultural runoff and water pumped in from the Salton Sea.
We have estimated that we'll have to keep pumping 24/7.
This model is designed to be replicated to cover more than 20,000 acres of playa, about half the lake bed that's expected to be exposed. Getting that working model up and running is a year behind schedule. The lake bed is too soft for heavy equipment to build the berms, and the pump getting the water from the Salton Sea will have to be on a barge so it can continue tapping the receding lake. Schoeneman remains optimistic, however, because the region is so important to wildlife.
The Salton Sea, for much of its past, the past 100 years, on a daily basis has provided food for over 200,000 birds every day. That's huge. That's on the scale of San Francisco Bay or Great Salt Lake in Utah.
Keeping pace with the Salton Sea's retreat remains the goal, but state officials are already behind in reclamation work and deciding how much money to invest. $80 million is committed. $300 million more will round out the cost of the 10-year plan. but the complete cost will likely fall well north of $1 billion. Officials are optimistic the money will be found, but currently that funding, like the future of the Salton Sea, remains uncertain. Erik Anderson, KPBS News.